Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the cold metal bars of her prison cell, watching the strange blue-skinned creatures move through the corridors of their ship. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrians had captured her research vessel near the outer rim of human space. Her crew was scattered throughout different holding areas. But what worried her most was the silence from the children's quarters. The Harmony had been on a peaceful mission to establish contact with new alien species. Sarah's team included 12 adults and 8 children from the Colonial Education Exchange Program. These kids, aged between 10 and 16, were the brightest young minds humanity had to offer. They were supposed to be learning about space exploration and diplomacy. Instead, they had become prisoners of war. A soft hissing sound echoed through the ship's ventilation system. Sarah recognized it as the Zephyrian language, though she couldn't understand the rapid clicks and whistles. The universal translator in her cell had been deliberately disabled, leaving her in complete communication darkness. Heavy footsteps approached her cell. 3 Zephyrian guards stopped outside, their forearms carrying various scanning devices. The tallest one, wearing what appeared to be officer markings, studied a holographic display floating above his palm. His large black eyes reflected an unsettling mixture of curiosity and calculation. Human female, the officer spoke in broken English, his voice carrying a mechanical undertone through his translation device. "You are the leader of this vessel?" Sarah straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze directly. "Captain Sarah Chen, United Earth Colonial Fleet. I demand to know the status of my crew and the children under my protection." The officer's head tilted to one side, a gesture that seemed almost bird-like. "Children? You speak of the small humans?" "Yes, the young ones. They're not combatants. They're students on an educational mission. Under galactic law, they should be protected civilians." A strange sound emerged from the officer's throat, something between a laugh and a growl. "You brought Offspring to space? To unknown territories where danger exists?" Sarah felt a chill run down her spine at the way he emphasized the word offspring. There was something deeply disturbing about his tone, as if he had discovered something shocking about human behavior. "They're students," she repeated firmly, "learning about space and other cultures. It's a standard practice in human society to educate our young through experience." The officer stepped closer to the bars, his alien features becoming more visible in the dim light. His skin had a metallic sheen, and small ridges ran along his forehead like tiny mountain ranges. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of disbelief. "You deliberately brought vulnerable young to a place of potential conflict, without full protection, without certainty of safety?" "We had no reason to expect conflict," Sarah replied, though doubt was beginning to creep into her voice. "This was supposed to be a peaceful first contact mission." The officer exchanged rapid clicks with his companions. Even without understanding their language, Sarah could hear the urgency in their communication. The scanning devices in their hands began beeping more rapidly, and the holographic displays showed readings she couldn't interpret. "Human captain," the officer said finally, "we must verify something about your species. These young ones, they are truly your offspring? Not adults of small stature? They're children, yes. Young humans who haven't reached full maturity yet. Why does this matter to you?" The officer's expression changed dramatically. His black eyes widened and he stepped back from the bars as if she had just told him something terrifying. The other guards reacted similarly, their multiple arms gesturing frantically as they spoke in rapid, hushed tones. "This changes much," the officer whispered, more to himself than to Sarah. "If what you say is true, then we have made a grave error." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, the guards hurried away, leaving her alone with more questions than answers. The ship's lighting system dimmed, indicating the beginning of their sleep cycle, but Sarah remained awake, staring at the ceiling of her cell. Something about the children had fundamentally shocked these aliens. Their reaction suggested that bringing young ones on space missions was not just unusual to them, but somehow horrifying. Sarah began to wonder what kind of society the Zephyrians came from, and more importantly, what they might do now that they realized they had captured human children. The sound of distant alarms began echoing through the ship, followed by the rapid movement of many feet. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in a red glow, and Sarah could hear shouting in the Zephyrian language. Whatever her revelation about the children had triggered, it was causing significant upheaval among her captors. As she listened to the chaos growing around her, Sarah made a silent promise to herself and to the young people under her care. No matter what these aliens planned, she would find a way to protect those children. They had trusted her to keep them safe during their educational journey, and she would not let them down. The ship shuddered slightly, as if changing course or adjusting its position in space. Sarah gripped the bars of her cell, preparing herself for whatever would come next. The real test of her leadership was about to begin. Commander Zexthul stood in the center of the Zephyrian command bridge, his forearms trembling as he processed the information flowing across the holographic displays. The bioscans from the human vessel had been run 3 times, and each result confirmed the same impossible reality. The small humans were not just physically immature, they were actual offspring in the care of adults. "High Commander," his communications officer called out, "the Council of Elders is demanding an immediate report. They've detected our emergency signals." Zexthul's throat pouch inflated and deflated rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his kind. In 300 cycles of military service, he had never encountered a situation like this. The Zephyrians were a logical species driven by careful planning and absolute certainty. Their young remained in protected breeding colonies until they reached full maturity and combat readiness. The idea of deliberately exposing offspring to the dangers of space travel was beyond comprehension. "Open a secure channel to the homeworld," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of his growing dread. The main display flickered to life, revealing the ancient and wise features of Elder Morketh. Her silver skin bore the scars of countless battles, and her 6 eyes held the wisdom of someone who had lived through the rise and fall of civilizations. "Commander Zexthul," she spoke, her voice like grinding stone. "Explain why you have triggered a Code 7 emergency. Your last report indicated a simple capture operation." Zexthul straightened his posture, knowing that what he was about to say would shock the entire Zephyrian leadership. "Honored Elder, we have encountered something unprecedented. The human vessel we captured was carrying offspring, young ones who have not yet reached maturity." Silence filled the communication channel. Elder Morketh's expression shifted from mild interest to complete disbelief. "Repeat that statement, Commander. Surely our translation systems are malfunctioning." "The scans are confirmed, Elder. 8 young humans ranging from newly mobile to nearly mature. They were traveling with adult humans on what appears to be an educational mission." The Elder's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of mental processing overload. "You are telling me that these humans deliberately brought their most vulnerable members into unknown space? Into potential danger?" "That is correct, Elder." The human captain confirmed this when questioned. She referred to it as a standard practice for education. Another long silence stretched across the communication link. Zexthul could see other elders gathering behind Morketh, their expressions mirroring her shock and growing concern. "Commander," Elder Morketh finally spoke, "if this is true, we are dealing with a species unlike any we have encountered. In all our cycles of expansion, we have never met beings who would willingly risk their offspring in such a manner. What are your orders, Elder? Maintain current position and ensure the safety of all humans, especially the young ones. Do not allow any harm to come to them while we convene an emergency session of the full council. This discovery may change everything we thought we knew about humanity." The communication ended, leaving Zexthul to stare at the tactical display, showing the human ship attached to their vessel. His science officer, Lieutenant Veltar, approached with additional scanning results. "Commander, we've completed detailed analysis of the human offspring. Their bone density is significantly lower than adults. Their muscle development is incomplete, and their brain patterns show they are still in learning phases. They are truly vulnerable young." Zexthul's throat pouch deflated completely, and yet their adults brought them to the frontier. "Lieutenant, run a full psychological profile on the human captain. I need to understand what kind of mind would make such a decision." "Already completed, sir. The results are disturbing. The human shows no signs of mental instability or reckless behavior. Her psychological profile indicates a highly responsible individual with strong protective instincts toward her crew. This suggests that bringing offspring on such missions is not an aberration, but a calculated choice." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If responsible, intelligent humans routinely exposed their young to the dangers of space exploration, what did that say about their species as a whole? "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving multiple priority messages from Fleet Command. Word about the human offspring has reached other vessels. Several commanders are requesting confirmation. Zexthel realized that news of this discovery was spreading rapidly through Zephyrian military channels. His people were a cautious species that valued safety and careful planning above all else. Learning that humans casually brought their young into dangerous situations would fundamentally challenge their understanding of intelligent behavior. "Open a ship-wide communication channel," he ordered. When the channel activated, Zexthel addressed his entire crew. "All personnel, this is your commander. We have made a discovery about the human species that requires immediate protocol changes. The small humans aboard their vessel are confirmed to be offspring, not adult combatants. Effective immediately, they are to be treated with the highest levels of care and protection. Any crew member who allows harm to come to a human offspring will face severe consequences." The bridge crew exchanged glances of understanding. They all knew what this meant. In Zephyrian society, the protection of young was the highest moral imperative. The fact that these humans had somehow ended up with offspring in their custody meant that Zephyrian honor now demanded their absolute safety. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "several crew members are requesting permission to visit the human holding areas to verify the condition of the offspring. They want to ensure proper care is being provided." Zexthel nodded grimly. His people's protective instincts were being triggered by the presence of vulnerable young, even if they belonged to another species. "Grant limited access but maintain security protocols. I want hourly reports on the condition of all humans, with special attention to the offspring." As his crew moved to implement the new orders, Zexthel couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter with humanity would change everything. A species that trusted their young enough to bring them to the stars was either incredibly foolish or incredibly brave. Given humanity's rapid expansion across the galaxy, he was beginning to suspect it was the latter. 16-year-old Marcus Webb pressed his ear against the wall of the holding cell, trying to catch any sound from the adjacent rooms where his fellow students were being kept. The Zephyrian ship had seemed terrifying at first, but something had changed in the past few hours. The guards who initially appeared hostile now moved with careful, almost reverent steps when they passed the children's quarters. "Did you guys notice how they keep staring at us?" whispered Elena, a 14-year-old from the Mars colonies. She sat huddled with the younger children, trying to keep their spirits up despite their circumstances. 10-year-old James nodded vigorously. "The blue one with the extra arms keeps making these weird clicking sounds when he looks at me. But it doesn't sound angry anymore." Marcus had noticed the same thing. The alien guards seemed to be treating them with an unusual level of care, almost as if they were made of fragile glass. Food arrived regularly, the temperature was kept comfortable, and medical scans were performed gently. Not like they were prisoners, but like they were patients in a hospital. The door to their cell hissed open and 3 Zephyrian guards entered. The tallest one, who Marcus had started thinking of as 4 Arms, approached slowly with his hands visible and empty. His large black eyes seemed to hold something Marcus hadn't expected to see from an alien captor: concern. "Young humans," 4 Arms spoke through his translation device, his mechanical voice somehow managing to convey gentleness. "We require information about your needs. Are you receiving adequate nutrition? Is the temperature satisfactory? Do any of you require medical attention?" The children exchanged confused glances. This was definitely not how they had imagined alien captors would behave. Elena, who had always been the boldest in their group, spoke up. "We're okay, but we want to know about Captain Chen and the other adults. Are they safe?" 4 Arms' head tilted in that bird-like manner they had all observed. "The adult humans are secure and unharmed. Our primary concern is ensuring your well-being." "Why?" Marcus asked, surprised by his own boldness. "I mean, not that we're complaining, but you're treating us differently than you treat the adults." The 3 guards exchanged rapid clicks and whistles. Even without understanding their language, the children could sense intense discussion taking place. "Young human," 4 Arms finally responded, "may we ask why your adult caregivers brought you to this region of space? Were you not safer in your home territory?" Marcus frowned, trying to understand the question. "We're part of the Colonial Education Exchange Program. We volunteered to come on this mission to learn about space exploration and meet new species. It's supposed to help us decide what we want to study when we're older." The reaction from the guards was immediate and dramatic. 4 Arms stepped backward so quickly he nearly collided with his companions. His translation device crackled with what sounded like distressed static. You volunteered? Your adults did not force this journey upon you. Of course not, Elena said, looking increasingly puzzled. Our parents had to sign permission forms, and we had to pass tests to qualify for the program. There were hundreds of applicants for only 8 spots. 12-year-old Sarah Kim, who had been quietly observing from the back of the group, suddenly spoke up. You guys don't bring your kids on trips, do you? The guard's silence was answer enough. Where we come from, Sarah continued with the fearless curiosity of childhood. Kids go lots of places with their families. We go camping in dangerous places. We visit other colonies. We even go on underwater expeditions. Our parents teach us how to be safe, but they don't keep us locked up. Forearms' throat pouch began inflating and deflating rapidly. Your adults permit you to enter dangerous environments? They teach you to face hazards rather than avoid them? Well, yeah, Marcus said, warming to the subject. My dad took me rock climbing on asteroids when I was 8. Elena's mom is a deep space pilot and has been taking her on runs since she was 10. That's how we learn, James piped up excitedly. My grandpa fought in the border wars, and he taught me how to use emergency equipment and survive in hostile environments. He says humans have to be tough to survive in space. The 3 guards were now backing toward the door, their conversation becoming increasingly agitated. Forearms raised one of his hands for silence. Young humans, we must consult with our commanders about this information. Please continue to rest and eat. We will ensure your safety. After the guards left, the children sat in stunned silence for several minutes. I think, Elena said slowly, we just really freaked them out. But why? Asked James. We didn't say anything scary. Marcus stood up and began pacing the small space. His analytical mind, the same one that had earned him a spot on this mission, was working through the implications of what had just happened. I think their species doesn't raise kids the way we do, he said finally. Think about it. They were shocked that we volunteered to come here. They can't believe our parents let us face any danger at all, so they keep their kids completely safe. Sarah asked. It sounds like it. Which means they probably think human adults are either completely insane or incredibly irresponsible for letting us come to space. Elena laughed, despite their situation. Wait until they find out about human teenagers doing extreme sports for fun. They'll probably have heart attacks. If they have hearts, James added thoughtfully. Marcus continued pacing, his mind racing. This could actually work in our favor. If they're this concerned about our safety, they're not going to hurt us. In fact, they're probably more worried about our well-being than we are. So what do we do? Sarah asked. Marcus stopped pacing and looked at his fellow students. Despite being the youngest group on the ship, they might hold the key to everyone's survival. We show them what human kids are really capable of, he said, with growing confidence. If they think we're fragile little things that need constant protection, maybe it's time they learned the truth about human young. The other children grinned, recognizing the look in Marcus's eyes. It was the same expression he wore when he had figured out a particularly challenging physics problem. Whatever plan was forming in his mind, it was going to be interesting. The emergency session of the Zephyrian High Council had been ongoing for 6 hours, and Elder Morketh could feel the weight of decision pressing down on her ancient shoulders. The council chamber, carved from a single massive crystal deep within their homeworld, had witnessed many momentous decisions throughout their civilization's history. None, however, had been quite like this. The implications are staggering, declared Elder Vexron, his blue skin darker with age and wisdom. A species that deliberately exposes their offspring to danger cannot be understood through our normal frameworks of logic. Elder Calmira, the youngest member of the council at only 400 cycles old, gestured with 3 of her arms as she spoke. Perhaps we are misunderstanding their motivations. Surely no intelligent species would genuinely risk their young without compelling reasons. The field reports are clear, Morketh replied, her 6 eyes scanning the holographic data floating above the council table. The human offspring confirmed they volunteered for this mission. They spoke of previous expeditions to dangerous locations with their parents. This appears to be standard practice in human society. The chamber fell silent as the council members processed this information. In Zephyrian culture, offspring remained in protected colonies until reaching full physical and mental maturity. The idea of deliberately exposing young to danger was not just foreign, It was fundamentally disturbing to their deepest cultural values. There is more, Morketh continued, activating additional data streams. Our analysis of human expansion patterns shows something remarkable. They have established colonies in regions that other species consider too dangerous to inhabit. Radiation zones, unstable star systems, planets with hostile indigenous life forms. And in many cases, these colonies include families with offspring. Elder Vexron's throat pouch deflated slowly. They bring their young to the most dangerous places in the galaxy? It appears so. Moreover, their rate of successful colonization in these hazardous areas is significantly higher than that of other species, including our own. The implications of this statement rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrians prided themselves on their careful planning and methodical approach to expansion. To learn that humans, who seemed to throw caution to the wind, were more successful at dangerous colonization was deeply unsettling. Elder Morketh called out Elder Thexula from across the chamber. What of their combat capabilities? If they train their young in dangerous environments, what does this suggest about their military potential? Morketh's expression grew grave as she accessed the military intelligence files. Our initial assessment assumed humans were a typical civilian species, based on their diplomatic approach to first contact. However, analysis of their colonial defense records tells a different story. The holographic display shifted to show various battle reports and conflict resolutions. Human colonies have successfully defended against Krell raiders, void stalker infestations, and even isolated destroyer scout incursions. In several cases, the defending forces included individuals who were technically still offspring by our standards. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and agitated clicking sounds. Elder Vexron rose from his position, his forearms trembling with disbelief. You are telling us that human offspring participate in combat operations? Not directly, Morketh clarified, but they serve in support roles during emergencies and have been documented performing complex technical operations under fire. Their adaptation to crisis situations appears to be exceptional. Elder Kalmira leaned forward, her youngest voice carrying new understanding. Perhaps we have been looking at this situation incorrectly. What if their practice of exposing offspring to danger is not recklessness, but preparation? Preparation for what? Asked Elder Thexula. For a universe that is inherently dangerous, Kalmira replied. While we protect our young until they are fully developed, humans prepare their young for the realities they will face as adults. This would explain their superior performance in hazardous environments. The council fell into deep contemplation. The concept was alien to their way of thinking, but the evidence was mounting that human methods, however shocking, might be more effective than their own. There is one more consideration, Morketh said quietly, and the chamber immediately focused on her words. If human offspring are raised to be competent and resilient in dangerous situations, what does that tell us about human adults? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Each council member began to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. Commander Zexthul's tactical assessment suggests the humans they captured were on a peaceful mission. Elder Vexron noted, if these represent their civilian population, including offspring, then what are their actual military forces capable of? Unknown, Morketh admitted, and that uncertainty is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this entire situation. Elder Kalmira stood up, her young voice carrying new authority. I propose we completely reassess our approach to the human situation. If we are holding beings who represent a species capable of raising functional offspring in hazardous environments, we may be dealing with something far more formidable than we initially understood. What do you suggest? Asked Elder Thexula. Full diplomatic engagement, immediate release of all human prisoners with full honors, and a formal apology for the misunderstanding that led to their capture. The chamber erupted in debate, but Morketh raised her primary arm for silence. The young elder speaks wisdom. If we have inadvertently captured the offspring of a species that treats danger as a learning opportunity, we may have made a grave diplomatic error. Moreover, added Elder Vexron, his tone heavy with realization, if human parents are willing to send their offspring into unknown space for educational purposes, they clearly have tremendous confidence in their young's ability to survive and adapt. This suggests either supreme arrogance or supreme competence. Given their expansion record, Morketh concluded, I believe we can rule out arrogance. The vote was swift and unanimous. The humans would be released immediately, with full diplomatic honors and an official apology from the Zephyrian Confederacy. But even as the decision was made, each council member knew that their understanding of the universe had fundamentally changed. A species that could turn childhood into training for a dangerous galaxy was not a species to be underestimated. The humans had just become the most intriguing and potentially powerful civilization the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Captain Sarah Chen was attempting to perform maintenance exercises in her small cell when the door suddenly hissed open. Instead of the usual guards, Commander Zexthul himself entered, followed by what appeared to be his entire senior staff. The Zephyrian commander's expression was difficult to read, but his body language suggested something between respect and apprehension. "Captain Chen," he began, his translation device rendering his words with unusual formality, "I must first offer the sincere apologies of the Zephyrian Confederacy for the manner in which you and your crew have been treated." Sarah blinked in surprise. This was definitely not what she had expected. "Commander, while I appreciate the apology, my primary concern remains the safety of my crew and the children under my protection." "The Offspring," Zexthul said, and Sarah noticed his throat pouch deflating as he spoke the word. "Yes, we need to discuss the Offspring. They're called children, Commander. And yes, we should discuss them." Zexthul gestured to one of his officers who activated a portable holographic display. "Captain, we have been analyzing your species' approach to offspring care and we find ourselves disturbed by our discoveries." The hologram showed various scenes from human colonies, children participating in emergency drills, teenagers working on space station construction projects, families exploring dangerous archaeological sites together. "You allow your young to enter hazardous situations," Zexthul stated, though it sounded more like a question. "We prepare our children for the realities of life," Sarah replied carefully. "The universe is dangerous, Commander. We believe it's better to teach them how to handle danger than to pretend it doesn't exist. But they are vulnerable, physically immature. Their cognitive development is incomplete." Sarah found herself smiling despite the seriousness of the situation. "Commander, may I ask how your species raises their young?" "Our offspring remain in protected colonies until they reach full maturity. They are kept safe from all potential harm until they are capable of defending themselves." "And how long does that take?" "Approximately 60 of your years." Sarah's eyes widened. 60 years? Your children don't experience the outside world for 60 years. It is the only logical approach to ensure their survival. But what about learning? Growth? Development through experience? Zexthul's staff exchanged those rapid clicking conversations that Sarah was beginning to recognize as signs of agitation. They learn through simulation and instruction. All necessary knowledge is provided in safe environments. Sarah leaned against the wall of her cell, considering her words carefully. "Commander, what do you know about human athletic competitions?" "Athletic competitions?" "Physical contests, sports, games where humans compete against each other or against environmental challenges. We have observed some human recreational activities. They appear unnecessarily dangerous. Many of our most challenging sports are performed by children and teenagers. Gymnastics, rock climbing, extreme skiing, zero-gravity racing. We have 12-year-olds who compete in activities that would terrify adults from other species." The holographic display flickered as Zexthul's science officer input new search parameters. Images began appearing of young humans engaged in various extreme sports, surfing massive waves, climbing vertical rock faces, performing aerial maneuvers in low-gravity environments. "This cannot be accurate," whispered one of the Zephyrian officers. "These offspring are voluntarily engaging in life-threatening activities?" "For fun," Sarah confirmed, "and with their parents' full support and encouragement." The Zephyrian command staff was now clicking frantically among themselves. Sarah could see their agitation growing with each new piece of information. "Captain," Zexthul said slowly, "we need to understand something. Are human offspring abnormally resilient compared to those of other species?" "I wouldn't know, Commander. We've never made direct comparisons, but human children are certainly capable of more than you seem to expect." "Explain." Sarah thought for a moment. 8-year-old humans can learn to pilot small spacecraft. 12-year-olds regularly participate in colony construction projects. Teenagers often serve as junior crew members on exploration vessels. The children on my ship aren't unusual. They're actually quite typical for their age groups. Impossible. Commander, may I make a suggestion? Zexthul nodded, though his expression suggested he was dreading what she might say. Why don't you talk to them directly? Ask them about their experiences, their training, their capabilities. I think you'll find that human children are far more resilient and competent than you've assumed. We have spoken with them. They mentioned volunteering for dangerous expeditions with their parents, and they seemed pleased by these experiences. They spoke of them as learning opportunities rather than traumas to be survived. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Of course they did. Children love adventure, Commander. The more challenging and exciting, the better. It's how they learn to push their boundaries and discover their capabilities. The science officer approached Zexthul with additional data. After a brief clicking conversation, the commander turned back to Sarah with an expression that might have been horror. Captain, our analysis suggests that human offspring possess cognitive and physical capabilities that exceed those of our own young by significant margins. Moreover, they appear to actively seek out challenging situations. That sounds about right. How is this possible? Sarah straightened up, pride evident in her voice. Because we don't just protect our children, Commander. We challenge them. We teach them that they're capable of more than they think they are. We show them that fear is something to understand and overcome, not something to hide from. But the risks are managed, but not eliminated. Every human child learns basic survival skills, emergency procedures, and problem-solving techniques. By the time they're teenagers, most of them are more capable in crisis situations than adults from species that prioritize complete safety. Zexthul was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Captain Chen, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood your species. We initially assumed that bringing offspring on a space mission indicated poor judgment. Now we are beginning to suspect it indicates supreme confidence. Confidence in what? In the capabilities of your young. And if your young are this capable, what does that suggest about your adult population? Sarah smiled. Would you like to find out, Commander? The main docking bay of the Zephyrian ship had been hastily converted into a formal meeting space. Commander Zexthul stood nervously as his crew made final preparations for what had become the most important diplomatic encounter in their species' recent history. The human children were being escorted to the bay under full honor guard, a gesture that would have been reserved for visiting dignitaries just days ago. Marcus Webb led the group of students, his natural leadership qualities having emerged during their captivity. Behind him, the other 7 children walked with the confident curiosity that had so thoroughly unnerved their captors. They showed no signs of fear or trauma, instead displaying the same eager interest they had shown throughout their educational mission. Welcome, young humans, Zexthul said formally. His forearms spread in what humans had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. I am Commander Zexthul, leader of this vessel. I wish to personally apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. Elena stepped forward with the bold confidence that had marked her as a natural spokesperson for the group. Thank you, Commander. Captain Chen told us you wanted to understand more about human children. We're happy to answer your questions. The assembled Zephyrian officers exchanged glances. Even now, seeing the children's casual confidence in this alien environment was deeply unsettling to their protective instincts. Young human Elena, Zexthul began carefully. We have learned that you and your companions voluntarily joined this mission. Can you explain why you chose to travel to potentially dangerous regions of space? Because it's awesome, James replied before Elena could answer, his 10-year-old enthusiasm bubbling over. We get to see new planets, meet aliens like you, and learn things you can't learn in school. You're not afraid of the dangers you might encounter? Marcus spoke up, his analytical mind engaging with the question. Of course we're aware of dangers, Commander, but we've been trained to handle them. Besides, staying completely safe means missing out on all the interesting stuff in the universe. Zexthul's throat pouch began its familiar deflation. Trained to handle dangers? At your age? Sure, Sarah Kim said matter-of-factly. I've been certified in emergency life support since I was 8. Marcus here can pilot a shuttle in an emergency. Elena's qualified to perform basic mechanical repairs on spacesuits. I can navigate by stellar positioning if the computers fail, added 14-year-old Carlos, who had been quiet during most of their captivity. And I know how to jury-rig communication equipment from spare parts. The Zephyrian science officer approached with a portable scanner, running it over the children with their permission. The results appeared on his holographic display. and he immediately called Zexthal over for a hushed conversation. "Young humans," Zexthal said after the consultation, "our scans indicate that despite your physical immaturity, your neural development shows patterns consistent with advanced problem-solving capabilities and stress adaptation. This is unprecedented in our experience. What do your kids do for fun?" Helena asked with genuine curiosity. "Our offspring engage in educational activities and simulated experiences within protected environments. No real adventures? No exploring? No testing your limits? Such activities would be too dangerous for developing minds." Marcus exchanged glances with his companions. "Commander, can I show you something?" At Zexthal's cautious nod, Marcus approached one of the complex control panels lining the docking bay. After studying it for a few moments, he began pointing out various components. "This is a standard atmospheric control interface, though the symbols are different from what we use. The red indicators are warnings, the blue ones are status displays, and the green controls are for adjustments. If I had to guess, this panel controls pressure regulation for the docking bay." Zexthal stared at the human child, then at the control panel, then back at Marcus. "How do you know this?" "Pattern recognition and logical deduction. Most technological species use similar design principles for safety reasons. Plus, I've been studying spacecraft systems since I was 7. You understand spacecraft systems? Well, the basics. Elena knows more about mechanical systems, and Sarah's better with life support technology. Carlos is our navigation expert, and James has been studying alien communication protocols since he was 6. The Zephyrian command staff was now clicking among themselves with increasing agitation. Their scans were confirming that these human children possessed practical knowledge and analytical capabilities that would be remarkable in Zephyrian adults, much less offspring. "Commander," Elena said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. If your kids stay in protected places for 60 years, how do they learn to handle real problems? What happens when they finally leave safety and encounter something their simulations didn't prepare them for?" Zexthal was quiet for a long moment. It was a question that struck at the heart of Zephyrian child-rearing philosophy, and he wasn't sure how to answer it. We ensure that our environments are thoroughly analyzed before we allow our young to enter them. But you can't analyze everything," Marcus pointed out. "The universe is full of surprises. That's what makes exploration exciting. And dangerous." "Sure, but danger isn't necessarily bad," James added. "My mom always says that anything worth doing involves some risk." 10-year-old Amy, who had been quietly observing the entire conversation, suddenly spoke up. "Commander, are you afraid of us?" The directness of the question caught everyone off guard. Zexthal looked down at the small human child, her bright eyes filled with genuine curiosity rather than accusation. "Not afraid, young human. Concerned, confused. Your capabilities and attitudes challenge our understanding of proper offspring development. Maybe that's because human development is different from yours," Amy replied with the simple wisdom that sometimes came from the youngest minds. "Maybe there isn't just one right way to raise kids." The docking bay fell silent as the implications of her words settled over the assembled Zephyrians. Here was a 10-year-old human calmly discussing philosophical differences in child rearing with an alien military commander, showing no fear or intimidation. "Young human Amy," Zexthal said slowly, "you may be correct. Perhaps it is time for us to reconsider our assumptions about what offspring are capable of achieving." Marcus stepped forward with a grin that would have been familiar to any human adult who had ever seen a child about to make a challenging proposition. "Commander, would you like us to show you what human kids can really do?" 3 months later, the Zephyrian homeworld received its most unusual diplomatic delegation in the species' recorded history. The human vessel New Horizons descended through the atmosphere, carrying not just adult diplomats, but a full contingent of human children participating in the first interspecies youth exchange program. Elder Morketh stood in the great crystal chamber, watching the arrival ceremonies through holographic displays. Beside her, Commander Zexthal provided commentary on what had become known throughout Zephyrian space as the Great Revelation. "The human children you rescued have spent the past month working with our engineering teams," Zexthal reported. "Their insights into adaptive problem-solving have already resulted in 3 significant technological improvements to our ship's emergency systems. And their effect on our own young? Profound, Elder. We have begun limited trials allowing our own offspring to observe the human children's activities. The results are unexpected. Morketh's 6 eyes focused on her commander. Explain. Our young are expressing desires to engage in more challenging activities. They are asking to leave the protected colonies for educational expeditions. Some have even requested permission to accompany the human children on their cultural exchange visits. The elder's throat pouch contracted in what might have been amusement. The human approach to child rearing is proving contagious. It appears so. Our sociologists believe that witnessing the capabilities and confidence of human offspring is inspiring our own young to question the limitations we have placed upon them. On the display screens, they watched as human children emerged from their vessel alongside the adult diplomatic team. The young humans moved with easy confidence, their eyes bright with curiosity as they took in their alien surroundings. Several Zephyrian youth, given special permission to attend the ceremony, watched from designated areas with expressions of fascination and barely contained excitement. The human ambassador has requested permission for their children to visit one of our protected colonies. Zexthul continued. They wish to understand how we raise our young, and they want our young to see different approaches to development. What is your recommendation, Commander? I believe we should grant the request, Elder. The human children have proven themselves to be remarkably adaptable and respectful. More importantly, I think our own young would benefit from the interaction. Morketh considered this carefully. The decision would represent a fundamental shift in Zephyrian child-rearing philosophy, one that would have been unthinkable before their encounter with humanity. There is something else, Elder, Zexthul added. The human children have proposed a joint project. What kind of project? They want to work with our young to design and build a small exploration vessel. Nothing dangerous, just a short-range craft capable of visiting nearby star systems. They believe that collaborative engineering would help both species learn from each other. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and intriguing to Morketh. Human children building spacecraft with Zephyrian young would have been considered madness just months ago. Now, after witnessing the remarkable capabilities of human offspring, it seemed almost logical. The human captain, Chen, has provided detailed safety protocols and adult supervision plans, Zexthul continued. Their approach to managed risk is quite sophisticated. They do not eliminate danger, but they prepare extensively for it. Through the displays, Morketh watched as human children interacted naturally with Zephyrian adults, asking questions, offering observations, and displaying the same fearless curiosity that had so shocked Commander Zexthul during their first encounter. Elder, came a voice from across the chamber. We have received communication from 17 other species requesting information about human child-rearing practices. Morketh's attention shifted to the communications officer. 17? The news of our encounters with human offspring has spread throughout this sector. Several species are reporting that their own interactions with human families have led to similar revelations about the capabilities of human young. What are they requesting specifically? Educational exchanges, collaborative projects, and in 3 cases, formal treaties establishing joint colonies where young of different species can be raised together. The implications were staggering. Humanity's approach to raising children was beginning to influence multiple species across known space. The idea that offspring could be capable, confident, and competent rather than merely protected was spreading like a new philosophy of development. Commander Zexthul, Morketh said finally, approve the colony visit. Approve the joint spacecraft project, and begin developing protocols for expanded youth exchange programs with humanity. Yes, Elder. There is one more thing. Yes? The human children have asked if they can meet some of our eldest offspring, the ones who are nearing the end of their protective period. For what purpose? They want to help them prepare for their first experiences outside the colonies. The humans believe that 60 years of protection, while keeping our young safe, may not have adequately prepared them for the realities of galactic life. Morketh was quiet for a long moment, processing the full implications of what her people were contemplating. They were about to fundamentally alter their entire approach to raising young, based on the example set by human children. Elder, Zexthul said softly, I have spent considerable time observing these human offspring. They possess something our young lack despite their shorter development period. What is that? Confidence in their ability to handle the unknown. They approach challenges with excitement rather than fear. and they seem to instinctively understand that growth comes from pushing boundaries rather than accepting limitations. And you believe this is something our young should learn? I believe it is something our young desperately want to learn. The question is whether we have the courage to let them. Morgoth looked out at the ceremony continuing below, where human children were now actively engaged in animated conversations with Zephyrian adults, their enthusiasm infectious even across species barriers. Very well, Commander. Begin the new protocols immediately. If humanity can raise children capable of thriving in a dangerous universe, perhaps it is time we learned from their example. As she spoke these words, Morgoth realized that this moment would be remembered as a turning point in Zephyrian history, the day they learned that safety and growth were not mutually exclusive, but that true security came from raising young who were capable of facing whatever challenges the universe might present. The alien who had stared in horror at the news of human children in space was now watching those same children fundamentally transform too, civilization's understanding of what it meant to prepare young minds for an infinite universe full of wonder and danger.